What's up everybody? Jason from JTV. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss a single tutorial here at JTV Life. Today, we're talking propane canisters, all right? You got two different kinds that we pretty much run into around our households here in America. We got the big boy, the 20-pounder. This goes under our grill, maybe sometimes on the front of a camper. This thing has got a lot of energy stored in it, and it's kind of the gold standard. Now the other one is the 1-pounder, the DOT 39. This right here is awesome for camping, small applications, or applications you want to be portable with, like a small stove or something like that. The only thing is, you buy these, you use them, and then you toss them. Why can't we fill them up? Now, the Department of Transportation and several other agencies advise not to. I think it's even illegal with some of them, but it can be done if we do it safely. To get this done safely, we're gonna put a couple little safeguards in place, all right? We always wanna inspect our canister. It's got a little gas in it, give it a little shake, sniff it. They put a dye or an odor inside of the gas. That way you can smell if it's leaking, all right? Next is we don't wanna be smoking. We don't wanna be next to sources of heat or flame when we're doing this. Common sense. The next thing we wanna do is we wanna make sure we don't overfill it. This thing has a tar weight of, meaning what it is when it's empty, of around 14 ounces, and then we're gonna put a pound of propane into it. So when it's totally full, it's gonna weigh about 1 pound, 14 ounces. The next thing we wanna make sure is that we're not over pressurizing our tank. And what I mean by that is propane is actually a liquid, it's not a gas. Once it comes out of the tank, from a high pressure to a low pressure environment, like in your lantern or on your grill or your space heater, it then diffuses into a gas. So inside our tank, we're gonna have a little bit of liquid and we're gonna have a little bit of gas. There's a pressure release right here on the top. So every so often as we're filling it and checking it, we're gonna let a little bit of that off gas out so that way we don't over pressurize our cylinder as we add liquid gas. The last thing we're gonna do to make sure that we're safe while we're doing this is that all of our connections are secure. And of course, you're gonna know that because you're gonna hear a hissing sound, you're gonna smell that kind of rotten egg scent that they've added to the propane for us. The tools that we're gonna need to be able to complete this effectively and safely is gonna be our little adapter. You can pick these up on Amazon. One end screws into our 20-pound tank, other end accepts our DOT 39. We're gonna have a screwdriver. We're gonna use this to push down on that pressure release to let out any kind of gas pressure that may have built up while we're filling the tank. Trusty pair of channel locks for making sure all of our connections are secure. And a simple little food scale, so that way we know we don't overfill our tank. This works best if you start off with a full tank of propane. I just picked me up a freshie today. So we wanna start off with a full 20-pounder. And then with our 1-pounders, put them in the freezer for about 20, 30 minutes, all right? This is gonna make it so it's nice and cold and all of that gas condenses back into a liquid. It's gonna make it easier for our DOT 39 to accept the propane from our 20-pound tank. Right now, our tank weighs 1 pound, 3.2 ounces. So that means we need to add roughly 10 ounces, a little bit more, to the cylinder for it to be full. To release the pressure, simply get a screwdriver that's about the size of this, just give it a little push. And you can see that this one doesn't have any pressure in it, so we're good to go. Now, we're gonna make the connections on our propane tank. And this is a little different than your grill, but this male piece is actually gonna go into the center of the tank, and it is reverse threads. So the side going onto the tank is gonna tighten to the left. We're gonna use our channel locks to make sure we get it on there nice and tight. Not overly tight, but tight enough to where when we screw our 1 pound tank on, which is traditional threads, righty-tighty, we don't loosen this piece up. Now we'll screw on our 1 pound tank, righty-tighty. Then I use my channel locks to hold the adapter in place while I give this another quarter turn or so to get nice and tight. The next step is going to be to invert our propane tank. This is going to make all the liquid go to what is normally the top of the tank where the valve is, so it can then flow into our 1 pounder. Now we're going to tip back our 20 pounder and we're going to open up our propane tank valve. You can already start to hear the liquid propane flowing into the DOT 39. All right, so 1 minute has elapsed. We're gonna reach over here, turn the valve off to our 20 pounder, and then we're gonna put the tank right side up. That way it's in a nice natural position for us to do all of our tightening and loosening on our tank chain here. You could do it upside down, but it's just easier to do it this way. That way you don't make any mistakes. Now I'm gonna grab onto my adapter with my channel locks, lefty-loosey. You might get a little bit of a propane spray here. This is why you don't wanna be chiefing down a stove while you're doing this. See, that right there would have been Big Boom Baby if you were ripping on those grits. Now, turn our scale on, and we'll put our propane cylinder on there. All right, so right now we're at about 1 pound, 8 ounces. So we're about halfway there. So now we're just gonna continue this process until we reach 1 pound, about a minute at a time, checking the weight in between. And this is how we do it safe by not overfilling our canister. I'm gonna use my screwdriver to release a little bit of the pressure. And then back onto the 20 pound tank we go. Invert our tank, turn on our valve, and we'll come back in another minute. So while that tank is continuing to fill, let's just take a minute to talk about the economics of refilling your own propane tanks. Why would you want to do it? Is it worth it? Well, typically these little Coleman 1 pounders, they sell at like a Walmart in a 2-pack anywhere between $7.50 and $8. Out here in California, I've seen them as high as $13. And that's just for 1, 2, or 3 pounds of propane, depending on if you get them in a 2 or 3-pack. Now, depending on where you get your 20 pounders filled, if you get them refilled and you pay per gallon, or if you simply swap them out at your local grocer for around $19. 16 to 19 seems to be like the national average. Your price is gonna vary on what it's gonna cost you to refill these. Where I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, it's about $19.99 for a 20 pounder swap. I have gone to more rural communities in the Bay Area and been able to refill my propane tanks for about $3.50 a gallon, which makes it slightly cheaper. Now, 1 gallon of propane weighs 4.2 pounds. So each gallon is gonna get you 4.2 of these little 1 pound cylinders, which works out to about 83 cents a cylinder. So we're saving big time there. Even if we do the swap with the little Rhino stand outside of the Piggly Wiggly, we're still looking at about a pound for $1. So we're gonna be able to refill these for $1, which is still 1/3, if not less, than if we buy them at the store. Now, what about convenience? Is it really worth filling these up and not just buying new ones and hucking them and risking the safety issues with filling them up? Well, me personally, I kind of feel like it's a little bit more safer to do it this way. And what I mean by that is when we go camping, say we go camping for 4 nights, right? I'll fill enough of these little propanes up for each of my devices. So I have a propane lantern, I'll fill a tank up for him. I got a little propane grill, I'll fill a tank up for her. And then I'll have an extra cylinder. So I'm only rolling out with 3 cylinders. If at any point during my camping trip, one of those happens to go empty, I can always refill it on the spot with one of my big tanks on my camper. So I don't have to carry as much gas containers with me on my trip. So instead of having 9 1-pounders with the chance of leaking or blowing up on me, now I only have 3. So I've reduced my risk by at least 60%. So that's how I look at it. How do you look at it? Let me know down in the comments. Have you guys already been refilling your DOT39s, or did you just find out about this? Does anybody do anything different than me? Or has anybody had an experience with one of these bad boys blowing up? Let me know. All right, now that another minute has elapsed, we are gonna close the valve on our propane tank. Release our 1-pounder. And put it back on the scale. All right, so right now we are sitting at 1 pound, 11 ounces. Now this is the point where you can continue to do this until you hit the 1 pound, 14 ounce mark. Or if you're like me, I call 1 pound, 11 ounces good to go, because I'd rather be a little underfilled than a little overfilled and have this thing heat up in the bottom of my camper and blow the backside of it off. When we're all finished, simply remove your adapter. Don't forget that right is going to loosen this because it's reverse threads. This is an old-fashioned safety measure, so that way pipe fitters didn't put water pipes into gas pipes. Put a little cover on to protect the threads. And continue to do this until you have all of your tanks filled. For now, I'm Jason for JTV, signing off. We'll catch y'all next time. If you like the content of this video, please hit that like button.
Like, comment.